Welcome inside the fish tank, everybody. My name is Andrew Sferator. Today, I am alongside my sole co-host, Nick Vasella. And after a brief but not so brief recess, we are back in business, recording some fantasy football podcasts for you guys. Nick Vasella, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Andrew. And obviously, we had a brief hiatus where we were evaluating the future of our fish tank and its members and its content and all the above. But it feels great to be back. And we've got a great show coming up ahead. We are going to discuss our love-hate players for this very important Week 15, which is probably the semifinals in most fantasy leagues out there. We're going to give our bold predictions, and for our own league members, we are going to have a segment, a brief segment, about 10 minutes or so, discussing our league's playoffs. So that should be fun.
Yep, I'm definitely looking forward to this. If you've been able to make it this far, you probably don't need our help, but we're here to guide you along the way. So, without further ado, let's just get into our love-hate.
All right, I'll start us off, and I will start with the love. And that is going to be my quarterback, Tom Brady, versus the Atlanta Falcons. And I mean, this shouldn't have to be said over and over again, but the Atlanta Falcons are one of the worst defenses in all of football. They're 32 against quarterbacks. And believe it or not, they're actually 7th against the run. So that's just a great recipe for quarterbacks and receivers going up against that team. They can stop the run, but they can't stop the pass. In Tampa Bay, they are going to be missing Ronald Jones, who is their lead rusher for this game. He's on the COVID list, and Fournette's been ineffective, and they've got other guys like Shady McCoy and the kick returner, Keshawn Vaughn. So that if it seems like it's going to be a non-existent run game, and Atlanta, we know they have the ability to put up points, so Brady should be right up there competing with them. I'm going to expect at least 3 touchdown passes and 300 yards from Tom Brady, and what I think could be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, you mentioned Rojo before, and just to touch up on this backfield, if Rojo doesn't play, I don't think you can really start any of those guys with confidence because Fournette, like you said, hasn't been effective, and they're probably going to mesh in everyone else. But as to Tom Brady, I definitely agree with the call here. Tom Brady has developed this high upside that we haven't really seen much throughout his career with all these weapons in Tampa Bay, and I think he is, in fact, a smash play this week.
Absolutely. Who is your first love of the week?
My first love of the week, it is Mr. T.Y. Houston. I mean T.Y. Hilton. I called him Mr. I called him T.Y. Houston because he owns the Houston Texans. That's the lightest way to put it. I mean, in his 14-game career against the Houston Texans, he has 76 receptions for 1,445 yards and 9 touchdowns. Just to put that into perspective, his career average through any 14 games is 66 receptions, 1,022 yards, and 5 touchdowns. So clearly, I mean, that's really all that has to be said about this player. If you see him playing against the Houston Texans, it's a smash play. It doesn't matter how old he is, doesn't matter how ineffective or how effective he's been the first 10 weeks of the season. He's a smash play this week. And now to add on to him playing the Houston Texans, over the last 2 weeks, he's the wide receiver 2, trailing only behind Devonta Adams with 50 points combined over the last 2 weeks. So even if he had not caught a single pass up until this week, I would still be playing him just based on his history against the Houston Texans.
Yep, he's Mr. Houston Texan, and it's been kind of a weird season for TY. Obviously, everyone knows how he did early in the season. He was drafted in the mid rounds, like maybe round 6, round 7, and he was cuttable. People were dropping T.Y. Hilton, and rightfully so, but now he's kind of had a little bit of a resurgence last 3 weeks. He's had really, really nice games, and I don't see a reason why it should stop here against the Texans. He owns them, and the Texans stink. So it seems like the perfect combination there.
And by the way, 2 weeks ago, he basically had his first good game of the season. Guess who that was against? The Houston Texans.
The Texans.
Yep.
All right, and I'm going to stick with the cult trend here, and I'm going to say Jonathan Taylor is my second love of the week. And what's not to like about Jonathan Taylor and what he's done the past couple of weeks and what he did last week? Ever since he came off the COVID list, he's been pretty much money for fantasy owners and for the Colts. And this is what we've really been expecting from Taylor. This is what we were expecting the entire year, and now it's really coming to fruition late in the year. And hopefully for those managers out there who had Taylor, hopefully you've been able to survive somehow and get to this point where you can actually, use him in a meaningful matchup. But Taylor, I mean, he's coming off the breakout game. I think he had over 30 carries for like 160 plus yards, and he scored twice. He ripped off that big 60-yard touchdown run. And this week he plays one of the worst run Ds. I think Houston is, I think they're like 28 against the run. Or something like that, and they've just been shredded all year, and that's the Colts' main. That's the Colts' game. They're going to run the ball, and then they're going to play off the run with play action passes and with all that. So Taylor, I think he's definitely a candidate to score here. And I mean, even though they have Nyheim Hines there, Taylor still catches passes in the three to four catch range every week, and he scored before in the air too, so that helps. And yeah, and in a game where I expect the Colts to, lead the game, the Texans are banged up. They have no offensive line whatsoever. In a game where I expect the Colts to lead, that should play really well into the game script for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor has had a little confusing season because before the season he had so much hype he did have a lot of hype before the season. Then week 1, Marlon Mack goes down with an Achilles injury. He takes over as a starter, and he's solid. I believe he was like the RB 13 or something like that for the first 5 weeks. Then the bye week came, and after the bye week, he kind of hit into a slump, and he wasn't really doing anything. They started to use Wilkins more. They started to use Hines more. But then, like you said, after he came off the COVID list, he's been great for fantasy, and I don't expect that trend to end now against the Houston Texans, who, like you said, are one of the worst run Ds in the league.
All right, give us your second love.
My second love of the week is Mr. Brandon Ayuk versus the Dallas Cowboys. Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers rookie wide receiver, has really been terrific. And now combine his performance with other 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel not being on the field, and that's an equation for success. When Deebo's not playing, he's on the field for over 90% of the snaps in all the games he hasn't been playing. So he's literally the only weapon there. I mean, they got Kendrick Bourne, but who's going to throw to Kendrick Bourne? They're going to use Ayuk the same way they would Deebo. He's going to get those end around carries. He's going to get a bunch of targets. Now they're from Nick Mullins, but I would take 15 Nick Mullins targets any day of the week. And similar to T.Y. Hilton, who's been hot the last 2 weeks, Brandon Ayuk is the wide receiver 4 over that same span. And this week he gets the Dallas Cowboys, who are the 26th best defense against wide receivers. So Brandon Ayuk is a smash play.
All right. Get this stat. Brandon Ayuk has more PPR fantasy points than Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, and Adam Thielen since week 7, and he has played in fewer games than any of those guys. That just speaks to what Ayuk has done. And I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that Ayuk doesn't have a solid game this week. I don't see it. I mean, I want to say I'm going up against Ayuk, so I want to say he's going to have a bad game, but I mean, there's nobody else to throw to in that offense. Kittle's not coming back this week, and they're down Deebo. So I mean, Ayuk is going to see plenty of targets from Mullins. I mean, the only way he does bad is if he doesn't catch, if he drops or they can't connect on at least half of them. But I definitely see double-digit targets for Ayuk in this game.
Yep.
All right. I'll give my third love of the week, and it is Terry McLaurin versus Seattle. And I know there are people out there that might ask, are you still considering McLaurin as a love with the news that Alex Smith is out and Dwayne Haskins is in? And the answer to that question is yes. McLaurin is still a love. Seattle's the 32nd ranked defense against receivers, so they're dead last in that category. The stupid, pathetic Seattle defense that is just an embarrassment. And I just see McLaurin, and he's going to be able to get open against this defense. But the main reason why he's a love for me this week is I see the targets being there, and that, as we know in fantasy, it's gonna equate to production for wide receivers. It's the targets, and Dwayne Haskins. I think when you watch Haskins play, whereas compared to Alex Smith, I think Smith kind of likes to throw short, and he likes to spread the ball around to his receivers. And he likes to, get multiple reads on the defense. But Dwayne Haskins is still a rookie, and he kind of only has that one read on a particular play. And I think that read, more often than not, is going to be to McLaurin this week. And in theory, Seattle's, one of the top scoring teams in the National Football League. So, I mean, the game script should be in favor for McLaurin. This guy, I don't see Washington being ahead for most of this game. I mean, I see it either being Seattle up or a very competitive game, and I think both bode well for McLaurin.
Yeah, I think you can argue that the news about Alex Smith is better for Terry McLaurin, because Terry McLaurin's game is not like catching short slant routes. Terry McLaurin's game is, running those streak routes and catching like long bomb touchdowns, and he hasn't been able to do that with Alex Smith as quarterback, really. And over the last 2 weeks, it's really been a struggle. He's only had 2 catches in each of those games, held under 30 yards in both. And I expect him to have a enormous bounce back week this week against the worst pass defense in the National Football League.
Yeah, he's on a 5-game touchdown drought. I think he breaks that this week, and as you said, the last 2 games have been dreadful for him. So it doesn't hurt that he's due for a big game too, which should help. All right, who's your third love of the week?
My third love of the week is going to be another rookie. It is Cam Akers playing against the New York Jets this week. Last week was the quote-unquote Cam Akers breakout week. He had 31 touches last week. That is an absurd number. You don't even see like most of the top guys, aside from like Derrick Henry in the NFL, getting this amount of touches in a game. And it's not – he was effective with these touches. He averaged almost 6 yards per carry. And he had what? He had like 20 fantasy points. So against the New York Jets –
yeah, he had 21 fantasy points without scoring a touchdown.
Yeah, and I assume he's going to score a touchdown this week in a game where they're presumably going to be ahead, playing against the worst team in the NFL. He's clearly taken over as the lead back here. It's not even up for debate anymore. Malcolm Brown, he's terrible at football. He's gone. Darrell Henderson, he was good for a couple weeks. He's gone now. It's officially the Cam Akers show in Los Angeles. And there's no better matchup to have than the New York Jets. So I wouldn't be playing many more guys than Cam Akers this week.
Absolutely. The logic here makes complete sense. And as a guy, I'm one of those guys out there. I drafted Cam Akers in the 5th round this year. And really this is kind of the production that I was expecting. And it was unlucky for me that it happened, or that it comes this late in the season when I can't use him. But I mean, everything seems sound here. I mean, the Jets stink. They stink. And I mean, any running back going up against the Jets is going to be in for a big game. I mean, come on. How does Akers not have a big game? He's clearly the alpha there. The Jets stink. And by the way, did I mention the Jets stink?
I don't think you did.
So we're going to big. All right. Let's move on to the hate list for our 3 hates of the week. Sperator, give us your first hate.
All right, my first hate is kind of if you heard this in the beginning of the season, you'd be laughing, but it's Ezekiel Elliott, star running back of the Dallas Cowboys. This week he gets the San Francisco 49ers, who are currently the 5th best run defense in the league. I really don't expect much to be done in this game from either team. I mean, aside from Brandon Ayuk, I don't want to come off as a fraud here. So he was on my love list. But I don't expect much scoring because the 49ers offense really stinks. And I think the 49ers defense is good enough to stop the subpar Dallas Cowboys offense from really doing anything. But let's just talk about Ezekiel Elliott here for a second. He's had over 14 fantasy points only once in the last 4 weeks. And when you think of Ezekiel Elliott, you think of a volume dependent guy, a guy that needs like 20 carries a game to be at his most production. But over the last 3 games, he's only averaging 13 carries, and that's really not going to get it done, especially with the amount of production that he's had. This banged up offensive line, this with Dak Prescott no longer the quarterback, this team led by Andy Dalton, this offense as a whole has taken a step back. And the fact that he hasn't been scoring really doesn't help him either. He's had 0 rushing touchdowns and only 1 receiving touchdown since the week after Dak Prescott got injured. And in addition to this, there is someone in Dallas that is secretly taking away from his snaps. Last week, Ezekiel Elliott was on the field for only 60% of the snaps, while his backup, Tony Pollard, was on the field for 40% of the snaps. There is most certainly a cause for concern here, not only for Zeke's production, but for his snap count. And I would be very concerned about playing him this week in a must-win, no-risk type situation in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, the answer is plain simple. You cannot use Ezekiel Elliott the rest of season, and his future, I think, is in jeopardy as far as fantasy concerned, even when Prescott comes back. Because let's be honest, Elliott just looks flat out terrible this year. He looks like a completely different runner. He looks like a shell of his former self. He can't run at all. I mean, he runs into like a pile of, like a bunch of linemen at the 3 yards from line of scrimmage every time. And Elliott, on top of this, I don't know if you mentioned it, but he's dealing with a calf injury where he has not been able to practice all week. So in addition to that, he's dealing with a calf injury, which we know can be tricky. So there is 0 upside. There's no upside with Elliott whatsoever at all. If you start him, you're just praying that he gets in the end zone and he puts up, in the mid-teens with fantasy points. He's unusable in fantasy rest of the season. See you next year, Elliott, and maybe I'll draft you in round 1.
Just one more thing about Elliott to touch up on how ineffective he's been. Last week, he had 12 carries for 48 yards. And this is including, I believe, like a 30-yard run he had to start the first half. So besides that run, he had virtually nothing the entire game.
So what you're telling me, besides that run, he pretty much had how many carries did he have in the game total?
12 carries.
What you're telling me is that if he ripped off a 30-yard run, he basically had 11 carries for like 18 yards the rest of the game against the Bengals.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Ooh. Wow. That is in a couple of words, not what you want. All right. Moving along to my first love of the week is going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire versus the New Orleans Saints. And I think the rationale here is pretty sound. I mean, Edwards-Helaire, he's going up against the Saints, who have the second best run D in the league, and they've been right up there. I think they're competing with Pittsburgh for the number 1 team against the run right now. And let's be honest, Edwards-Helaire just has not been an efficient runner at all. I mean, he averages, I think, like under 3 yards a carry, and that's not what you want, especially in this Chief offense. I mean, the Chiefs, we know Edwards-Helaire had the flu 2 weeks ago, and I think he had 5 catches and 16 carries. So he had 21 touches last week, which is pretty good. But he's still going to split with Bell, and they still, believe it or not, bringing Darrell Williams for a small number of snaps. But he's still a factor for some reason. And I think in these really big competitive games, I think the Chiefs they sometimes, I think, get away from the run, especially when it's not effective. And I don't believe it to be effective. You got a guy that doesn't run effectively and going against the second run D in the league. That's not a good combination at all. And I think the Chiefs are going to get away from the run. They're just going to lean on Mahomes in this game to have a big game against the Saints. So I'm not really sure. I think if Edwards-Helaire has a good game. He's going to get in the end zone. He's probably going to have to get in twice to have for the big boom factor. He's going to have to get in twice. And I think he could be a factor in the passing game, but it's not a given fact that he's going to, get in that 4+ catch category. And I just don't think it's going to happen this week for Edwards-Helaire against the Saints.
Yeah, I don't really see any upside in Edwards-Helaire. He's not like a guy that's going to get into the end zone a lot, but he could, but I don't really think he's going to. And I just don't see any upside there. And I don't really see a floor either. He's not, because, like you said, Bell is there chipping away at the work. Darrell Williams, like God knows why he's there, is chipping away at his work too. And just to touch up on this for next year, I am very curious for next year's draft board, because you look at a lot of the top running backs that were drafted this year. Let me just run through the list of them. Obviously, you got Dalvin Cook and Derrick Henry. They're, cream of the crop. But you got guys like Christian McCaffrey. He's been injured all year. Saquon Barkley left in week 3 with an ACL injury. The guy you just mentioned. Week 2. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's really been a bust, to put it lightly, this season. Josh Jacobs, who hasn't been great either. Kenyon Drake, same for him. Miles Sanders, relatively same for him. And Ezekiel Elliott.
Joe Mixon.
Who I mentioned before. Joe Mixon also. So a lot of the top guys that were drafted this year have really not produced to anywhere close to where they were drafted. So I'm just very curious to see where these guys are going to be drafted in particular next year, and also which guys are going to be drafted in close to where these guys were drafted next year.
Absolutely. That's fascinating, because then when you combine those veterans, or, we call them veterans, but, for running backs, but they're like 25, 26, 27 years old, that's veteran at the running back position. Then when you factor in those rookies like Akers and Swift and who am I missing? Jonathan Taylor. I mean, how do those guys? Yeah, Gibson. Where do you factor those guys in? I mean, it's going to be just a mess. And I honestly could see a world where in a 12-team league in 2 rounds, I could see, I could see like 18 or 16 to 18 running backs taken in the top 24 picks. And that seems crazy, but I think people are going to want to get their hands on all these running backs for next year.
Yeah.
All right. So moving ahead, Andrew Spartor, give us your second hate of the week.
All right. My second hate of the week is going to be Devonta Parker, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, versus the New England Patriots this week. So just to start off about Devonta Parker, he's been limited all week in practice with a hamstring injury, which he aggravated last week, and I think he left the game early. Not sure about that, but I know he did put up a goose egg.
Yep, because of the hamstring.
Yeah. And he plays this New England defense, and I think when you go into New England, you know that your top option is going to be relatively locked up. And that is who Devonta Parker is, especially if their tight end Mike Gesicki does not play this week. Devonta Parker is the only guy there that's going to catch any passes, and that might seem like a good thing, but against this New England defense that shuts down these top options, I'm not so sure that is a good thing. I actually think that is a bad thing. And in addition to who he's playing, his quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, has not been the same fantasy point distributor that Ryan Fitzpatrick has been. He's just averaging 8.4 fantasy points per game with Tua as the starter, compared to his almost 14 with Fitzpatrick as the starter. So this is just a situation that I would like to avoid entirely, if at all possible, with Devonta Parker.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm expecting a pretty low-scoring game between the Dolphins and Patriots. Both of these teams, I think, are pretty well known for their defense, especially the coaches, Flores and Belichick. So, I don't see upside for Parker either in this game.
I just want to say one more thing about this Miami Dolphins situation. So, Brian Flores, obviously he's a tremendous head coach. The Dolphins were one of the worst teams. Actually, they weren't one of the worst, but they were a bad team last year. And this year, they have a well over 500 record. They're competing for a playoff spot. And they have a really weird situation that's occurring at their quarterback position. Everybody in the world knows that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to give you better chances at winning football games. Everybody and their mother knows this. But for some reason, the Miami Dolphins have decided to go with this rookie quarterback who has just not been performing really close to Fitzpatrick's level. When they're competing for his playoff spot, I would understand this if they were completely out of the race, but they're not. Do you know if they're in a playoff spot right now or they're on the outside?
I think they're the 6th seed in the AFC.
So I'm a little confused. I don't think anyone really has answers to what exactly is happening, but
yeah, I completely disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Ryan Fitzpatrick gives them a better chance at winning than Tua does. And everyone knows Tua is the future of this team. I would much rather give Tua the experience this year. And Tua's done a fine job. I mean, he kept them in the game against Kansas City last week. Tua can do a fine. Tua's doing a great job.
I was gonna say he didn't really keep them in the game.
I completely disagree with that.
They had a last-ditch effort to come back.
I completely disagree with that. They want to give Tua the experience. I think it's better having Tua start the playoff game than Fitzpatrick just to get that experience. I mean, the Dolphins aren't winning a Super Bowl this year. They're not going to start Ryan Fitzpatrick. Come on.
They're not thinking that they're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're still going to try to win the Super Bowl. And if they want to try their best, they would.
Right, but they still have to figure out the reality. I mean, they're not winning a Super Bowl with Ryan Fitzpatrick as their quarterback. They're not going to get past Kansas City.
That's a lame take.
That's a lame.
Everybody has a chance.
How is that lame?
And every team thinks they have an equal chance too.
No, come on. So you think the Washington football team or the New York Giants, when they get into the playoffs, you think they have an equal chance of winning the
Well, they think they have a chance. They think they have a chance.
Oh, come on. Stop. That's
what do you think they're playing for?
Even...
What are they playing for then? They're just playing for fun?
Come on. Come on. They're not getting past Kansas. They're not going to – that's ridiculous. They got to get – all right, so why do you think – yes, it is. That's why they're starting Tua.
They're starting Tua for some odd reason that no one knows why.
Because he's the future of the franchise. They got to start him and get him in these games.
Do that when you're not in the middle of a playoff race, though.
All right, so they're a good team. They got a good defense. What, are you never going to get Tua in there?
You can get him in.
I mean, you were quoted. You were just quoted. You were quoted seconds ago, as saying everyone and their mother knows Fitzpatrick gives them a better chance to win than Tua does. Yes. I don't think that's the case.
I do.
Tua's got more talent than Fitzpatrick does.
All right, but it has not developed completely yet. It takes time to develop.
I think it was pretty developed in the last game against Kansas City.
Oh, give me a break. The Chiefs scored like 30 consecutive points, and they just came back.
What does that have to do with Tua? Tua held his own.
It's called prevent defense.
That's a ridiculous take by you. Ridiculous take. All right, so we move forward in this show, and I'll give my second hate of the week, which is going to be Adam Thielen versus the Chicago Cubs. I'm thinking baseball. Adam Thielen versus the Chicago Bears. Excuse me. And Thielen goes up against a Chicago defense that is second against receivers this year, which is not a good matchup at all. And when we talk about Minnesota, we know obviously that unless they're really behind or in a really high-scoring competitive game, they're run, and run some more with Dalvin Cook. I'm expecting 30-plus carries, 25-plus carries for Dalvin Cook in this game. And I think if there's going to be a lack of targets going around for Thielen, and we all know he's going to share it with the rookie Jefferson, who I think is starting to become I think he could, eventually supplant Thielen as the number one in the offense. If not, if he hasn't already done it. Yeah. And Thielen didn't have a good game last week. 3 catches, 36 yards. And I'm not really expecting another big game for him this week against that tough Bear defense.
Yeah, Thielen needs to get into the end zone, or he's going to disappoint you. And against the Bears defense, I expect this to be a low-scoring game because the Bears offense sucks. So yeah, I agree. All
All
right,
right, give us your third and final hate.
my final hate is a guy that you've been talking a lot about coming into this week. It is Tyler Lockett, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, versus the Washington football team defense. Now, Tyler Lockett, since having 50 points against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 7, these are his wide receiver numbers. Wide receiver 54, 61, 32, 10. Wide receiver 10. He's back. No, next week 72, 44, and 41. This is I don't know what Tyler Lockett's problem is. Maybe it's a Russell Wilson thing because it seems as Russell Wilson got off to that hot start, and then as soon as he started, not doing the same, Tyler Lockett followed him. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe Tyler Lockett has been sucking the last few weeks, which has been affecting Russell Wilson's play. But who knows? So you can say you expect him to have a bounce back week, but I really just don't see that happening against the fourth best defense against wide receivers. When he's barely averaging over 10 points over the span I just mentioned, I just don't have any confidence in him.
Yeah. We get it. Tyler Lockett hasn't been good his last however many amount of weeks, but you still got to start this guy. I mean, the upside he provides on a week in and week out basis, if he has one of those big games, it's an automatic win. So there is just no way, there's no chance in hell you could sit Tyler Lockett.
I'm not necessarily saying to sit him because you're gonna for the rest of your life you're gonna be kicking yourself for benching Tyler Lockett if he goes off for 40 points on your bench and you lose because of that. But yep. I'm just saying not to get your hopes up too high.
Yeah. And now we move to my final hate of the week. And gather around the phone. I'm going back to one of those. I'm giving a gather around card. All right, gather around the phone. Gather around the television. Gather around the laptop. Gather around.
All right.
The iPad. Gather around whatever you do to listen to this fine fantasy football program. And I'm going to tell you a little story.
Oh, boy.
James Conner. He is my final hate of the week. Goes without saying. James Conner. Last time he put up over 20 fantasy points, week 3 against the Houston Texans. All right, since then he had modest 15 points, modest 17, then he had 14, 15, then he has 4, 6, 12, and 1.8. Last week, after he missed 2 games due to COVID, last week he had 10 carries for 18 yards, no catches. He's been, in a word, repug. Repug, very, very, very repugnant over these last few weeks. James Conner, this week in Cincinnati, that's a horrendous play if you decide to play him. James Conner, I think he's dealing with a bit of a quad injury. Mike Tomlin said that after last week against Buffalo. So that does not bode well for him. That's not something you want. Another thing against James Conner, he's not the goal line back in this offense. That's Benny Snell. So James Conner, if you think Conner's touchdown dependent, where is he going to score that touchdown? Is he going to score from 12 yards out or something? Benny Snell is the goal line back. And as of late, he's not the third down back either. Oh, wait, that's Jalen Samuels now, who's occupied that job for the past couple of years or something. That's Jalen Samuels now, who's been, a healthy scratch in the last early part of the season. So Connor's not going to catch passes. Where's the upside at all? This is just a disgusting, hideous start if you choose and if you're in your right mind. Or if you're insane, if this is a hideous start, what are you possibly thinking about? when starting this guy. And also another thing, Pittsburgh can't run the ball for their lives. Pittsburgh can't run the ball. Roethlisberger throws 50 passes a game. They don't run the ball at all whatsoever. It's just Big Ben throwing like 2-yard slants to his wide receivers and then making plays after the catch.
No,
and dropping them too now. I mean, this is a hideous start. Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is a terrible start. Come on, stop. I don't want to hear James. All right, I'm just gonna say it. I can't hold back. I can't hold back.
Wait, save it. Save it for when we talk about the playoff matchup. Save it.
All right, fine.
There's a few.
Let's move on to the next segment.
No, there's a few things I want to touch up on here. You mentioned Benny Snell being the goal line back. If you have watched the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 2 weeks, and you've watched them on the goal line, they have given the ball to Benny Snell on the 1-yard line. They've given it to him like 7 times, and he hasn't gotten in like once. It's pathetic how bad the Steelers running backs are. They can't even get a single yard. And just the second point, the Pittsburgh Steelers as a whole, their offense is really just not doing it. The last 3 weeks, they've been held to under 20 points. So obviously they have that elite defense, and that's pretty much the only reason why they're sitting here with only 2 losses on the season. But if you take the record away, they're really just not playing good football right now, and that is definitely translating through James Conner's performance as well. And yeah, it's just I don't think you can't even start him. You can't even think about starting him.
I will not speak on the subject right now because I will just get heated and I will get aggravated, and let's just move on to the next segment. And We'll get there when we get there. All right, let's move on to bold predictions for this week. 15. I'll give you the floor, Sparrow. You give us your bold prediction first.
All right. I'm not sure how much of a bold prediction this is because it's in all likelihood going to happen. That's how confident I am of this.
I will be the judge of that. Let's hear.
All right. So we touched up on a few of these guys, but I'm going to throw their names out there again. Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, and Jonathan Taylor. My bold prediction is that these 3 guys will finish as 3 of the top 4 running backs on the week. Obviously, the other one being Derrick Henry, but all 3 of the top 4 will all be rookie running backs for this week.
My first reaction. All right, I could see Taylor. I could see Akers there. I'm not really sure about DeAndre Swift, and I don't know. Swift, I mean, everything you hear from those players in Detroit have been saying he just hasn't looked like himself since that concussion. And he really, believe it or not, he had 7 carries last week. Inexplicably, I think he got like his first couple of carries in the second half of that game. It was Peterson early on. And Swift also had 4 catches. So maybe they're just easing him back in. They might be without Matthew Stafford this week, and they've got Chase Daniels, their backup. So I don't know if that really makes or breaks Swift's outlook. But, I mean, I think it could be boom or bust. So, I mean, I guess I could see it. I'll buy the Akers and Taylor part, but I'm not sold on the Swift part of that bold statement.
All right, that's respectable. Let's hear your.
All right. Yep. All right. Here's my bold prediction for Week 15 in the National Football League. Both Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. will have 75-plus rushing yards and 1 touchdown versus Dallas this week. And obviously, we talked about how bad the Cowboys are in the Ayuk part, but how bad they are as a defense against receivers. They're even worse against running backs. And, I mean, they're horrendous against the run. I mean, every team that they've played has been able to run the ball down their throats. And I think San Francisco, they're smart. They've got a smart coach in Shanahan. He knows that the way to win this game against the Cowboys, their point of weakness is the run. And that's what the Niners like to do, and that's what they can do best. They take pressure off of their quarterback, Mullins, and I think they're just going to pound the ball. I mean, and the way they're going to do that is with Mostert and Wilson. Mostert last week had 14 carries. Wilson had 11 carries. So there's definitely plenty of touches to go around for both of these guys. Mostert had a bit of an injury. He was taken off. He's not on the injury report for this game on Sunday. So that's the bold prediction. Both will have 75 rushing yards and 1 touchdown at least against Dallas.
Yeah, I believe the Baltimore Ravens, when they played the Dallas Cowboys, had over 300 rushing yards combined with all their players. So
yeah, I mean
that is an absurd number.
Ridiculous.
And I think my name is Jeff Wilson is the for sure goal line back. And I think Mostert is going to have to score by breaking off a long touchdown, like 20-plus yards. But I could definitely see that in the realm of possibilities this week.
All right, that concludes our bold prediction segment of the week. And this is where we will dive into our own couple of leagues, and we'll give them a segment on what has happened in all things playoffs in the ESPN Redraft League and in our Sleeper Dynasty League's playoffs. So, Sperator, why don't you get us started? Just give us your overall thoughts on the playoffs so far in the ESPN League.
Okay. So, I guess I'll give the 4 teams that are still in it. We got Allen Robinhood, a.k.a. TJ Gillespie, facing against the number 1 seed Alvin and the Chipmunks, a.k.a. TJ Rogers. And in our second matchup, we have Mr. Nice Guy, Sam Small, going up against the number 2 seed. I can't say his name, but Luke Yurchik. His name is not.
McKissick this bleep. This bleep.
Yeah. So there you go. First reactions. I must admit, even though I'm not a part of this playoff this year, I'm still looking forward to it because there's a lot of smack talk going around the league right now, and and no matter who wins, no matter who loses, a bunch of people are gonna get torn to shreds. So it's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. And I think we just have to do a quick minute or so on what transpired last week between Andrew Hanlon and Sam Small in their divisional playoff matchup. And Andrew Hanlon, in a word, got screwed. I mean, let's be honest. Let's call it what it was. Andrew Hanlon got screwed. And then guess what? He's got guys like you, Andrew Sperzer. He's got guys like you that are in his ear afterwards telling him that he should have started Kareem Hunt over, I mean, who were his other players? He had to start Deontay Johnson as his flex, who got benched because he can't catch a ball. And the Steelers, by the way, they couldn't do anything on offense the entire game. So you said he should have started Hunt over either Johnson and his other running backs were Akers and Cook. So who was he going to start Kareem Hunt over? Come on. Let's be real. Stop being a troll. Get off this guy's case. Get off this guy's case. He has done nothing but been a great ambassador for the league. He's a great team player. He's got great teams every year. He's a great mind. Come on. Let's step it up. Get a clue. Get a grip.
All right. First of all, you said it. This was a troll job, for reasons that he. All right. You know what? This is perfect. Andrew Hanlon, if you remember, this is the guy that Thomas Walsh gave a phone call, and unexpectedly, off script, he called me a clown in the middle of the show. And you're telling me that giving him fake hate is not justified? I mean, if I called him a clown 1 million times right now, that would still not add up to the amount of times he's called me a clown.
Stop. You're being disrespectful. You're being very disrespectful.
He did the same thing. He did the same exact thing to me, which is it's frustrating, man.
Yeah, well, guess what? He did the same thing, joined by everybody else when you inexplicably started T. Higgins over Robert Woods when Woods had a big game.
This is not necessary.
It is very necessary. You just don't want to admit it. You are wrong. You are wrong. You try to put yourself in the same category as this guy. Well, I'm here to defend his honor. No, that's not what you do. You stop being disrespectful to Hanlon right now. It ends. Hanlon went. Hanlon got screwed.
Breaking news. Conspiracy theory. Andrew Hanlon is slipping Nick Fasella money to defend him on the fish tank. Oh,
Not even close.
The tables have turned.
Not even close. I just hate it when I see people in our league like you give this guy crap time and time again for doing nothing but doing the right thing. He was down after last week's loss, and you got to just pound him while he's down. Come on, that's a classless move.
All right, all I'm going to say is he did the same thing to me, so if you can't dish it out, then if you can't take it, then don't dish it out.
All right. Whew.
So.
All right, I will.
Don't calm down just yet, because I know there is something else that you are very mad about.
Yeah,
and let's talk about that right now.
Yeah, it was breaking news. It was breaking news about a half an hour before the recording start of this podcast, and let's just be blunt about it. T.J. Rogers, the number 1 seed, Mr. I know football, Mr. Analytic guy, or whatever you want to call him, because he's got the answer for everything.
I'm Mr. Analytic.
He's gonna start. He's going to start James Conner this week, who we just, for countless reasons, we told you why he's a terrible play this week. He's going to start James Conner in his Week 15 semifinal matchup over somebody like Jeff Wilson Jr., DJ Chark. Who else does he have? He picked up Sanders, I know.
Believe it or not, I would play Lynn Bowden Jr. over James Conner this week.
Yeah, so would I. That's a ridiculous start. That's a play. That's a losing play. If you're going to start James Conner this week, and he goes earlier. Well, honestly, I could see James Conner getting 30 yards and a touchdown. He's not getting a touchdown.
Or 30 yards for that matter. He's not
the goal line back. What is he going to rip off a big run or something? No, the Steelers can't run the ball, and Connor stinks. Come on, that's Bush League. That is Bush League. And you know what? I've got to say something too. I've been saying this guy. My 2 guys in the playoffs were Andrew Hamlin, who got screwed last week, and T.J. Rogers now this week, who I think has a good chance to win it all. Breaking news on the fish tank. Breaking news. Sound the alarms. And this is an ultimatum. If T.J. Rogers continues to go through with this and he starts James Conner this week, and I will go into the impression that he does that and starts Conner, I am officially revoking my fandom for T.J. Rogers, and I will be placing it in the hands of Mr. TJ Gillespie, because I think that the winner of the TJ matchup will win it all. TJ Rogers has just completely lost my fandom with this move. James Conner, it's inexplicable. You are out of your minds. You are a mind-bogglingly moron. If I put that correctly.
I don't think you did, but we got the point.
Yeah, you guys get the point. You get the point. I can't believe it. This is terrible. I mean, there's no defense at all for it. I'm still waiting for an explanation. What's the explanation? There is none. Come on. This is ridiculous. Get a grip. And you know what TJ Rogers does all the time, and he does this with his football stuff and with his spread picks and this fantasy. He loves to be cute. He loves to be cute with all of his picks. He thinks he's going to outsmart everybody by making these miraculous, out of left field starts that he thinks they're going to end up working. Like, he's picking the Jets and spread this week, which is asinine in its own right. And he's going to start James Conner, and he's going to be tremendously disappointed with that start. And I can't get over it. I mean, and you know what I'm pissed about too? He's going to make me look like a fool because I'm the guy that's, actually had his back this entire time. Come on. You're better than that, TJ.
You know what makes us even better? James Conner plays on Monday night. So if he decides to go along with this we're all going to be watching and laughing at him on national television when James Conner absolutely...
Yeah, guess what's going to happen? TJ Gillespie's going to have a big lead going into Monday, and TJ's going to need like 10 or so points from James Conner, and he's not going to get it. Come on. He's not going to get it. He's going to be eliminated.
So, all right, so I assume if TJ Rogers goes along and starts Conner, you're going to take Gillespie in this matchup.
Yep, that is correct.
So just to go over a few of these teams. On Gillespie's team, his notable players, obviously Derek Yeti. He's the number one player in fantasy, in my opinion, right now. He's got Nick Chubb, Allen Robinson, and Mark Andrews. Those are his studs. As for Mr. Rogers, he's got Alvin Kamara, who's getting his quarterback back this week. He's got Mr. Kelsey. I think if you have Travis Kelsey on your team, it is very hard to not be in the playoffs. He's leading the league in receiving yards, and he's a tight end. I mean, come on. And yeah. I guess Calvin Ridley. We'll go with Calvin Ridley against the Buccaneers for his top three players this week.
Yep. If TJ Rogers wins, he'd have gotten bailed out at some point during this game because he is making a big mistake, and I just beg him, I plead him to please reconsider because I'm rooting for him. All right, let's move on to the other matchup, which is Sam Small, Mr. Nice Guy, versus McKissick, this blank, Luke Juracek. I think go ahead.
This game actually had some action in last night's Charger-Raiders game. Luke Juracek having Josh Jacobs. He put up 20 points, so Josh Jacobs, 20 points. That's a nice game. I'm off to a good start. But no, he went against Darren Waller, who put up 30 points. So that obviously dampens the mood in the Juracek household on this evening. But continue with what you were saying.
Yeah, I think that's actually, it could have been worse for Luke Juracek. I mean, Jacobs, he scored the touchdown. I think he caught like another night. He caught like a pass for 10 plus yards at the end of that game too. I mean, Jacobs had 26 carries for 76 yards, which is 2.9 a pop, and that's not what you want. But he got bailed out with that touchdown to have a nice fantasy day to keep him in the matchup for now. Luke Juracek, I know this has been well chronicled in the past before, how Juracek, we've been saying that he's got, a couple of great players, but other than that, he's got nobody at all. He's got Murray, lying. Who's been.
You think Fish is lying right
we're
now?
Not. I mean,
he's starting Rashard Higgins this week, and you know who his other options are? Marquise Brown, Devontae Booker, and Nelson Aguilar already played, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Those are his other options.
And who's he starting at tight end also?
I don't even want to look. Tyler Higbee. Close your eyes.
Oh my God, that is. I can't believe it. That's a 2 seed right there too.
And his kicker.
He's really just got.
This shouldn't matter much, but his kicker is Cody Parkey.
Yeah. He's got Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, and Kyler Murray. Murray's been down as of late, as opposed to up. Adams is always great, but I mean, he traded for McCaffrey a while ago, and McCaffrey's not going to play. So, Adams is guaranteed production. So I really see that as his only player. I mean, Metcalf is going up against a solid defense in Washington. Metcalf is up and down. When Metcalf has his down week, I mean, I think Juracek's going to have a down week. So, I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I think just based on the fact that he was just snuck in at 6 and 7 in the playoffs, but I think Sam Small's going to win it and then lose to TJ Gillespie in the championship next week.
Yeah, I've been on the Sam Small wagon TM through the entire playoff run. Sam Small, by the way, congratulations on winning your first ever playoff matchup. Took him 4 years, I believe, to do it. So
yeah, let me interrupt for. Oh, actually, wait. I'll say I've got 2 points. My first point is going to add on to what you said. Luke Juracek is also is in the 0 playoff win category, and this is a guy He's been in the playoffs pretty much every year. He's had a winning record. He's had a couple of buys. He's had multiple buys.
He had a bye
but he just can't get over that hump. he can't win a playoff game. I mean, this is what's going on here. If he doesn't win this game, this is almost Dallas Cowboy like of the last like 20 years. Can't win a playoff game.
Yeah.
And my second point is you're a fraud.
Why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand why. What's the context? Why are you on the small wagon when after he beat you in a win-and-in playoff spot in a win-and-in match in Week 13? He beat you, so I'm just confused. Why are you on the small wagon?
I don't know. That is a fantastic question.
Oh, you're a fraud. You're a fraud. Fraud exposed.
I guess it would be because if I had to pick a winner or pick someone to win, I would want it to be Sam Small because I think he deserves it the most. And I think he's got a pretty good team as well.
That's Fugazi. Well, he doesn't have a better team than Gillespie, and he doesn't have on paper. He doesn't have a better team than Rodgers.
I think you could argue that he has a better team than Gillespie.
Gillespie's team has put up like 180 points in his last 2 games. You're a fraud.
I'm taking Sam Small in this matchup.
This is ridiculous. You should want him to lose. He beat you. He beat you handedly to advance to the playoffs.
I'm not a bad guy.
You don't have any vindictiveness. You don't want him to get it handed to him.
No, because I'm not a bad guy.
Oh, stop. This is Fugazi. This is Fugazi, folks. And Fakakta, too.
All right. Who are you taking to win this matchup?
Give me Sam Small. I said I'm going to go with Sam Small to win this matchup. Then I'm going to go with Gillespie over Small in the championship.
All right.
And that's provided that if TJ Rodgers does come to his senses and take Connor out, I take Rodgers to win the matchup, and I got Rodgers over Small in the finals.
Okay, I would, assuming he takes Connor out, I would do the same thing.
All right, let's move on.
The Dynasty League.
Our Dynasty League played on Sleeper, and yeah, so I'll let you go ahead and announce the final 4 teams since you're not in it and I am.
Okay, yep. So that's a common theme this year. I'm not in the playoffs. So we got Mr. TJ Rodgers.
You weren't. Wait a sec. You were in the playoffs, but you got eliminated.
All right. I was. Hold on. Quick context here. I started 6-1. I ended 6-7. Now that might seem bad, but if you looked at what happened along the way, you would feel some compassion for me. But the final 4 teams, Mr. TJ Rodgers. Oh, look at who's back again. The 1 seed, 12-1 in this league, playing against Thomas Walsh, aka the Walsh Wagon, TM. TJ Rodgers. I don't think really anyone wants to see this guy win. Actually, I shouldn't really say that, just because he's the one. He's the one. I didn't really mean that. He's the 1 seed in both leagues. If he wins both, we're never going to hear the end of it. I'll be fine with him winning just one, but just not both, please. And then in our other matchup, we have TJ Gillespie. There he is again. Finished 9-4, aka the God Squad, as he calls himself. And who is he playing against this week?
He's playing against me, but first, before we get into my whole situation and our predictions for these 2 matchups, I just want to say one thing, that we've got 2 crossovers between these playoffs. We've got Gillespie and Rodgers are in both playoffs, and I'm praying above. I'm praying to everybody that's out there, any person that's in control of anything out there. I'm praying, dear God in heaven above, do not let these guys, do not let one of them win both leagues.
Yeah.
Please do not let that happen. It can't happen. Not in the realm of possibility. It can't happen. I won't be able to deal with it. Well, in Dynasty, I won't be able to get over the fact if I lose this week or if I lose next week because I'm the favorite. But I can't believe I won't be able to understand if they win both leagues. That is just please don't let that be the case.
Okay, so I guess we can get into the matchup not including you first. with Mr. Rogers and
I'll play along.
Walsh. I'll take that as a yes. So, like we said, TJ Rogers was the favorite. Was it?
No, he's not.
He's the 1 seed. He's the 1 seed in both leagues. And
I'm the favorite.
Okay. Well, I'll play along here. Last night, the Walsh wagon had Darren Waller. Oh yay, Darren Waller, 30 points. But then he also had Keenan Allen, who had 1 catch. He had 1 catch on the first drive. And he didn't have a single touch the rest of the game. So combining for his 32 points, that's not terrible. That's probably what he would have wanted coming in. And then TJ had Austin Eckler last night, who put up 12. So not really much switching in terms of the projections or the total fantasy outlook of this matchup. But thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm looking at the lineups right now. And both teams, they have their studs, obviously. Walsh has Henry. He had Waller go. And he's got Kupp, who's been okay. Allen was a big disappointment. But I think maybe Waller made up for some of that with his big game. And Walsh also has Montgomery, who I think actually it could be due for a bad letdown game. And then TJ Rogers has Josh Allen, pretty good. Alvin Kamara, great. James Robinson has been great. Devonta Adams, great. Who was, by the way, handed to him on a silver platter by Nick Mamay. One of the worst trades that we're ever going to see. Nick Mamay is it was a cockamamie move by him.
Do we disclose the trade?
Yeah, I'll disclose it. It was Devonta Adams for a 30-year-old receiver, Adam Thielen, and 1 first-round pick.
The best receiver in fantasy football.
I don't even want to get started. I'm just gonna go berserk again. I'm gonna go crazy when I think of that because it makes me want to puke.
Don't make him feel too bad. He came in last in both leagues, or second to last.
All right. Yeah. He will have the number 1 pick in the rookie draft, but he's clearly building for the future. And if you want to build for the future, newsflash: if you want to build for the future, you don't trade away the best player for a 30-year-old receiver and 1 first-round pick. My God. And then he's got TJ as McLaurin. But then both lineups have, some soft areas where Thomas is starting Jamison Crowder and TJ Hawkinson, a.k.a. the Hawk at his flex. And TJ Rogers is starting Cole Kmet as his tight end, Michael Pittman as a receiver, and he's starting Edward Hilaire, who made the hate list this week. So, both teams have their haves and their have-nots. And it's projected to be a pretty tight matchup. But I think the Walsh wagon is on a roll right now, and I think the Walsh wagon will – and you're a fraud, too, because you're inexplicably a Walsh wagon, too. You're probably just a troll, but I'll play along. I think the Walsh wagon will win. And next week, and this week, I will win my matchup too because I'm the favorite, and then I will go on to play Thomas Walsh in the most highly anticipated fantasy finals matchup of all time in the inaugural season of this very Dynasty League. And I will dethrone Thomas Walsh. Actually, he's not even on a throne. He's the worst. He's an inferior team to me. But I will take down the Walsh wagon. I will burn the wagon to the ground. I will execute all of the Walsh wagon followers. I will make everyone pay. And I will live up to the billing of being the Dynasty favorite and take home the championship in the inaugural season. And then next year, I will come home to my 3 first-round draft picks, the 2nd overall pick, the 5th overall pick, and a TBD pick in the first round. It's time for the fish wagon. Join the fish wagon now. We're accepting all members. We've already got half the league. Join the fish wagon. This is the place to be. Favorite. I'm the favorite.
All right, just some context here. Nick Fasella has been calling himself the quote-unquote dynasty favorite since probably like week 6. So that's a long time.
I'll give you that. Ever since I made my trade of DK Metcalf for that massive haul,
oh, yeah,
I've been the favorite. That was brilliant work by me. if I do say so myself.
I'll play along. I'll play along.
All right, we know my predictions for these playoffs. Give us your predictions. What do you think's gonna happen?
I think it's the same as you. I think it's going to be the Walsh Wagon versus Lights Camara action. Maybe that's just me trying to speak it into existence because I would pay money to watch this unfold. If I could somehow get you two in a room together and observe from the outside on Sunday, I would absolutely pay money to watch that.
Oh my God!
Oh, but by the way, this is the guy that Fish just fired on the last episode.
Yep.
So obviously,
there's already that. There's that storyline. I'll give it this context. If I get to play Walsh next week in the championship, it's like Yankees Red Sox on steroids. That's how big it's gonna be. On steroids. That's how big it would be. And by the way,
Oh boy.
Thomas Walsh, our fellow co-host, is unfortunately a fraud. And this is, I think, this is going to be how we're going to close up this podcast. He's a fraud. All year, we've not heard a peep about this guy, about his dynasty team. Not a peep. I bet he didn't care whatsoever about this dynasty team. In fact, when I played him one week, he started DeAndre Swift. Oh, no, he did not Swift. I think it was Kenny Galladay. He started Kenny Galladay when Galladay had been ruled out. That's how Thomas doesn't care. He doesn't care at all. He didn't even set his lineup. And now all of a sudden that he's in the playoffs, he's now Mr. Dynasty and he's Mr. Walsh Wagon. Come on. Geez, let's go. Get a grip.
This is partially why I'm rooting for him because it seems like he makes you very angry, and that is a fun sight.
Well, what I'm saying, what I just said, does that make sense to you? He hasn't been into his team all year. Now that he's in the playoffs, he talks up his team constantly. Does that make sense to you? That why he's a fraud?
No, it doesn't make sense, but it's funny.
What? It doesn't make sense to you?
Oh, what?
Oh, all right. I thought I get you. You think he's a fraud. You agree with that, right?
Yes.
All right. I got you.
I thought you were saying it doesn't make sense how his team is like good and he hasn't been paying attention.
Yep. That is our former co-host, Thomas Walsh, who was fired last week.
He quit first, but
Nope, we fired him. We fired him. He's out. He devalues the show. He makes it worse. All right, and that is going to conclude our Week 15 preview. Our love-hate was the beginning portion of the show. Then we gave our bold predictions, and then we just gave our preview of playoffs in the semifinals in our both leagues. Any closing remarks?
Yes, I did not say who I thought was going to win the matchup if you and him ended up making the championship. And I'm here to tell you
by all means,
that the Walsh Wagon is going to pull it out and be the champion.
Not sure about that.
I am aboard the Walsh Wagon. TM, trademark.
All right. And I guess you'll be one of those victims of my wrath then this season, these next 2 weeks.
I will play.
All right. You'll play along. I'll play along too. That will conclude our podcast. Until next time, we will see you in the fish tank.